Now the Trump White House has revved up its crackdown on migrant criminals, fulfilling a campaign promise. In Colorado, DEA and ICE agents busted a massive underground nightclub that they say was filled with violent gang members, making more than 100 arrests. Watch some video of that moment. And in Florida, ICE and law enforcement agencies arrested nearly 800 illegal aliens in Operation Tidal Wave. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt says this is just the beginning.
Over this past weekend, it was announced that through Operation Tidal Wave, a joint effort between ICE Miami and Florida law enforcement agencies, nearly 800 illegal aliens were arrested during the first 4 days alone. Among those arrested were a Colombian murderer, alleged MS-13 and 18th Street gang members, and a Russian with a red notice for manslaughter. And on the other side of the country, in the early Sunday morning hours, DOJ and DHS together launched a joint raid of an illegal alien underground nightclub used by Tren de Aragua in Colorado Springs, Colorado. DHS took more than 100 illegal aliens into custody, and many drugs and weapons were also seized. Operation Tidal Wave is a preview of what is to come around this country.
Just a preview. The Trump team sending that warning, turning the White House lawn into a mugshot wall of 100 illegal aliens ahead of President Trump's 100th day in office. Look at this, dozens of posters displaying the mugshots of those illegal immigrants that have been planted along the White House driveway, the People's House driveway. Border czar Tom Homan says, quote, President Trump is saving lives.
President Trump and this administration here, their success is unprecedented. We beat Trump's first administration on border success. Border numbers are historic low. Today, as I'm standing here, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation. And the numbers prove it.
An exciting point to be at, Larry, that took a little bit of muscle getting here. And as the White House press secretary says, but this is just the beginning.
You know, Democratic pollster Mark Penn, who I think is one of the best in the business, the Harvard-Harris poll, I think it's called, one of the few you can trust. We'll get to these other terrible polls as the show goes on, but shows nearly 80% of Americans support not just the zero border closing, the zero immigration to the border, but the deportations. The deportations, okay? We'll get to this crazy judge in Milwaukee later on, I'm sure. But the Democrats find themselves in the position of opposing this, which is remarkable to me. That's point number one. Point number two, Trump has done a fabulous job. We're 100 days in. You got all these Washington Post, New York Times polls trying to show how bad he's doing. They're all fixed. They're all fake numbers, by the way. He has cleared it out. He sneezed, and the border went to zero, okay? Just one sneeze. Don't come here. And the border went to zero. It was fantastic. Now the harder part is the deport. It was just a quick allergy sneeze. That's all it took, really. Right. Biden couldn't do it in 4 years, okay? Trump ought to go down to the border, I think, and remind people, sort of walk along the border and how empty it is. I mean, you could play catch with your 9-year-old girl at the border. That's how safe it is. So that's terribly important what's happened here. And it just shows in the 100 days what he is doing right.
And Larry talks about, reminding and showing. I mean, look at that on your screen right now. What a fantastic visual and visceral reminder to Americans what they were facing and now who is gone, Molly.
Yeah, this remains his strongest issue right now. And as Larry was talking about the polls, there's a swath of polling that shows the border and immigration is his strongest issue right now. So this is smart to focus on this as he's coming up into the 100 days and as he heads to Michigan, and will most likely shift a little bit and start talking about his economic plans and his plans for the next 100 days and many days after that. But among those signs is an arrest of a Jamaican national convicted of child rape out of Boston. So it kind of brings it full circle to what the administration is trying to do to push back on sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, and ties all of this together. And so they've done that over the course of today and also over the course of the last couple months, really pushing that message forward. And the polling shows that the American people are liking this part of what he has done so far.
Which is in contrast, as Larry pointed out, to what the sort of mainstream media will have you think, which is that Trump is somehow sinking in approval.
Sure, and he's not. I mean, you look at the polls on deportation, for instance, Washington Post, ABC found 52% think he's doing just the right amount.
Even those,
or not
even
enough.
those phony polls.
Even Washington Post and ABC. I want to pull up those White House lawn signs again, if we can, because I think this is very important, what the White House is doing here, the communications team. They're showing their work. Now, you might not be able to see it on your screen, but the descriptions of these individuals: first-degree murderer, sexual abuse of a child, kidnapping and rape, murder, rape of a child, distribution of fentanyl, sexual assault of minors, lewd acts in front of a child, sexual contact with a child. In other words, not good actors. And we know that 73% of those arrested during the Trump era are people with pending criminal charges or criminal convictions. But look at this. I have some brilliant commentary from none other than Joe Scarborough's team over at Morning Joe. They had a guest on. Guess what this guest said about those signs you're looking at right there? All of these people, they're mugshots. They've been booked and charged with crimes. Well, here's what they have to say at MSNBC. We don't know if they've had due process. Okay, they're booked. They get court hearings. Nevertheless, we don't know if, in fact, these individuals have a rap sheet. They're booked for crimes. So I would encourage those individuals that have this in the background of their shots, because reporters do hits from there, to blur the faces of these people. It blows my mind that the leftist press is more interested in blurring these pictures than standing up for Laken Riley, Rachel Morin, and the list goes on. Nate, whose story we covered, who was killed by an illegal immigrant in a car crash. They don't care about the American citizen, but blur these faces, please.
And Harris, I wanted to ask you about the visual, as you talk about it, the visuals of, remember when the White House released that video saying, look, self-deport back, and you will then be able to enter in later, and we can play a few seconds of it. Let's watch here.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that...
Leave now. If you don't, we will find you, and we will deport you. You will never return.
Entering this country illegally is a crime, and we're not going to forgive it.
If you cross the border, your chances of being apprehended are much greater, and if you are apprehended, you're going to be removed from the country.
Take me home to the place I belong.
And you contrast that communications video, Harris, with the video of us watching hundreds and hundreds of alleged illegal immigrant, criminal, convicted individuals being arrested by our law enforcement agencies.
So politically, we'd call this a deliverable, right? Mm-hmm. But as Americans, we call this a victory for our national security, and it's a safety issue for us. That's why voters went to the polls. They did not go to the polls to give Trump or anybody else a checked win. That's not why they voted. They voted because they wanted to know that they are safer and that we actually have national sovereignty at both our borders, by the way. You can have some good conversations these days with DHS on that northern border, too, and just how much we know now that we perhaps weren't privy to knowing under the Biden administration. So this is really important to see this. And I think on this 99th day, on the eve of 100, it's important to see that their number one issue, as it's turned about, right behind the economy, is being handled. Now it's to the economy. And I have to say, just a hat tip and a thank you for watching MSNBC and bringing forth that and having to watch it for the rest of us.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Take it for
Someone
the team.
sent it to me.
Okay.
You reclaimed your time.
Yeah.
You.
All right, great.
That's you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.